Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of the Barroom Network programming for the Chicago Bears. We got a blockbuster trade that has left me tongue-tied. And to evaluate the trade, we've got a lot of Barroom Network show hosts. And let me begin with Danny Shimon, our senior draft analyst with the Barroom here. Danny, what do you think about the trade?
Well, although it's funny that the Bears dropped a big bomb here on Friday evening for us to go ahead and talk about this trade. But yeah, I mean, initial reaction I was telling some of the guys is I was a little underwhelmed. I had expected a little bit more in terms of a return. Now, and I know Ryan Poles is out there talking about getting 2 first round picks in next year and in the following year's draft. And I think that was him just kind of trying to build up some of the other teams and trying to get some more competition for the first overall pick. So the first thing he tells me is that this is the best deal he could have gotten. In terms of why I'm a little underwhelmed, like just taking a look at it, obviously, I love the first round pick next year. That's probably going to be, I'm hoping, in the top 10 because, you figure Carolina's going to draft a quarterback, start him, and they're going to go through some of those, growing pains, you would think. And in terms of I guess what bothers me is they only got 1 first round pick. If you don't, I'm not including the 9 pick this year. I'm including about future first round picks. They only got 1 future first round pick. While DJ Moore is a nice receiver, I never thought of him as a number 1 receiver. Now, I know he put up stats in Carolina with some shoddy quarterback play over the years, but he's not a touchdown producing receiver. I think the most he had was this past season with 7. Prior to that, he had 4, a couple different times. So he's not a touchdown guy. Hopefully that changes with Justin Fields and with this Bears offense. But again, you're not getting, in my opinion, a guy that I saw as a number 1, true clear-cut number 1 receiver. I was hoping if you made a trade with Carolina and moved down, the player you get back in return was a guy like Brian Burns, the edge rusher, the guy who made back-to-back Pro Bowls. That's what I was expecting. Maybe my expectations were a little bit unrealistic, but and the other thing was about this trade is they got the lowest of their second round picks, the 61st pick, which Carolina got from the 49ers in the Christian McCaffrey trade. They didn't get the Carolina pick, which is 39th. Now, that's what I assumed that the Bears were going to try and get, is recoup that pick in that top 30 area, which they gave up, their second round pick for Claypool. So that's another piece of the trade that disappoints me, was why not get the higher of the second round picks this year? And then instead of getting a 2025 second round pick, once you get a 2024 second round pick, because that's one, again, you expect Carolina next year to have a struggling season or a below 500 season where you kind of have some of these picks that are going to be higher up, So those are the things that really kind of took me off. Now, obviously, it all depends on what you do with these picks and how you go ahead and maneuver and who you select, how it all turns out. But there's no doubt DJ Moore you're not going to find anybody better than DJ Moore in free agency. In terms of the draft, that's to be determined. But again, I just thought that the Bears could have probably done a little bit better in this trade. But I know I'm probably in the minority in terms of the reaction to the trade. So now what matters now is you have another receiver for Justin Fields. Now you have to go use these picks. Do not trade these picks, Brian Poles. Do not trade these picks. Use these picks to go ahead and build this roster around Justin Fields.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he traded lower than the 9 overall pick. He'd have to be wild. So we'll see. Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport broke the news. It was Schefter that broke the details of the trade. This was his tweet. The pick number 9, the pick number 61 coming to the Bears, along with the first round pick in 2024, the second round pick in 2025, just as Danny mentioned, along with wide receiver DJ Moore, and then Courtney Cronin shortly thereafter updated the 2023 draft selections. So this season, we are drafting at 9 and 53. That's the Ravens pick that was acquired in that trade. The 61 pick, the 64 pick. So you got 4 picks in the first 64 picks. The 103rd, 133rd. Those are 2 fourth-rounders. In the 5th round, the 136th, 148th. And then in the 7th round, 218. And then that comp pick, the almost Mr. Irrelevant pick, number 258. Danny, I want to have you evaluate the play of DJ Moore. I've got some highlights here for you to talk over. Let me first put up his stats over the last few seasons. He had a fairly good rookie season, 788 yards on 55 catches, 2 touchdowns, and then he had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, 1175, 1193, 1157. Each of those seasons, though, he had just 4 touchdowns, and then last season there was a drop-off, 888 yards receiving on 63 catches, but he did have 7 touchdowns. Tell me what you know about DJ Moore. I know you liked him coming out of college. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, in terms of when he came out of Maryland, I mean, he was a kid that really showed the potential in terms of the skill set, the speed, the jumping. But I think he jumped a 40-inch vertical at the combine. He's 6 feet, 210 pounds. He's a solid receiver. But again, he's got that explosive trait about him. I think he ran a 4.42, if I'm not mistaken, coming out of the combine. So he's got that deep end speed. But again, talking about some of the production, he's definitely put up some numbers. We showed him there, but again, the touchdown production, other than this past season where he had 7, it's really been 2 and 4 and something like that. So, that's the thing is, like, I want to see him take that next level up. And again, to his credit, he put up stats with shoddy quarterback play at Carolina. So hopefully, Justin Fields here with Darnell Mooney, with Chase Claypool, you've definitely improved the receiver room here with the Bears, and they're not done yet. I still feel like they're going to draft a receiver in this upcoming draft. Probably not in the first 2 rounds is my guess, but we'll see how that breaks out. So definitely an improving draft room here. Receiver room here. But again, is he going to take the next step up to be a quote unquote number 1? I think a lot of people kind of correlate his stats with the 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons and assume he's a number 1 receiver. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But I just think there's another step to his game that he has to elevate in order to be considered a true number 1 receiver. And one of those things I want to see is him produce more touchdowns, hopefully for the Chicago Bears.
Indeed. Now, given that they're moving to number 9, you're obvious and Nomad, and you talked about this just before we went live. Your top player was Tyree Wilson. It looks like he will be out of reach unless the Bears trade back up to try to land him. But at number 9, what are you expecting will be available for the Bears based on their needs? And that, of course, is offensive and defensive lines.
Right. And I think they're going to expect the Bears to go heavy in both free agency and the draft in both offense and defensive line. And I think at number 9, my guy, Tyree Wilson, most likely is going to be gone. But there's a one player that could drop, and that's Jalen Carter. And depending on what happens in terms of his legal case and all the stuff that came out here with the car accident, if he drops to number 9, if the Bears feel comfortable in terms of there's no other things coming out, and trust me, every single NFL team now is digging into his background and seeing what happened here with this case. If they feel comfortable that he's not going to see any more legal action or anything like that, or nothing else coming out, and if he's there at number 9, I think you got to pounce on him. You can take a player like you were considering at number 1 overall, number 9. That's a huge get right there. But assuming he goes earlier in that both Carter and Tyree Wilson are gone, then you got to look at offensive line. And again, now we have to see what happens in free agency. Are they going to sign a right tackle in free agency? Obviously, if that happens, now you kind of pivot off of that. But at number 9, I'm looking at Broderick Jones, the tackle from Georgia. I'm looking at Paris Johnson, the tackle from Ohio State. And even Peter Skoronski. I know he's not a tackle. He's probably going to play guard. But you put him in there next to a left guard. And I know Whitehair's there right now. But if you trade Whitehair, you release some cap money or whatever you can save there. If you can secure your left side of your offensive line, and guards aren't sexy. No one's going to jump up and down for a guard. But, if you solidify your left side of your offensive line, that's a huge get there as well. So that's what I'm looking at. If Carter and Wilson are gone, it's probably going to be one of the 3 in terms of, Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, or Peter Skoronski from Northwestern are probably going to be in that order. Go and solidify your offensive line. Again, assuming they don't sign a right tackle in free agency. Though, another thing keep in mind, guys, is one of these quarterbacks drops down, whether it's a Bryce Young or Will Levis, there could be a team like, say, Washington at 16 might say, "You're right, come knocking on the Bears' door, say, you know what, we want to move up there at number 9." So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bears drop down even further down. Again, depending on what's available on the board, what Washington or another team that wants to trade up for that quarterback is willing to give up. So there's always an outside chance that they still could go down one more time, but most likely they're probably going to stick at number 9 and probably take the best player available. And I think at this point, if the draft goes the way I think it's going to go, it's probably going to be an offensive lineman.
Yeah, Danny, you and I and Neil Stopchinski talked about this on Draft on Tap last night. I'm not a big fan of Mike McGlinchey. I think he is a good right tackle. He's a scheme fit, but I just see him on the ground way too often. He's not a great pass protector. He is good at run blocking, but at 28, he seems to be playing more like a 32, 33-year-old. So I'm not real high on any really of the right tackles available in this draft, in this free agency class. So I wonder if the Bears are really going to focus on the defensive linemen that are available and then reach for that offensive lineman like a Paris Johnson, probably my favorite offensive lineman in this draft. What do you think about the Bears focusing on defensive line come free agency, which starts in less than a week from now?
Yeah, I mean, that'll be ideal. That'd be great. I mean, Draymond Jones from Denver is a target of mine. I would like Javon Hargrave from Philadelphia as well, but he's 30 years old. I'm not sure if that fits in the timeline that Ryan Poles has for this Bears, because by the time the Bears are contenders, is Hargrave going to be 32, 33 years old? How old is he? How productive is he going to be? But I would love if they go and they double dip there and they get Draymond Jones and they get Hargrave, for example. And again, I really want to see them get, and this is something that I think I might be in the minority here, but it's C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the safety / nickel corner from the Eagles. I would love to bring that type of tenacity, that type of attitude onto this Bears defense. And that guy is a Swiss Army knife. You could line him up to cover a slot corner, to cover a receiver. You can cover tight ends in the slot. You can play some safety. A lot of times last year the Bears, played a nickel defense, and a lot of times we saw, DeAndre Houston-Carson, who I love as well. But you're going to be able to upgrade here in that position where we saw DHC out there with Eddie Jackson, with a Brisker. You flip him off now. You put in Gardner Johnson. That's going to improve your secondary even more. A young and improving secondary. So, but again, all starts up front for me. You got to go out. You got to get a Draymond Jones from Denver. You got to get a Hargrave if you're going to put your resources right now initially going in to go ahead and at the defensive line. Those are the names that you look at, and then C.J. Gardner Johnson is another game to look at. I was looking at DJ Shark as a receiver. But with the addition of DJ Moore, I think that's less of a priority now. I think you have another speed guy here. I was told that the Bears were looking for another receiver. This is prior to the trade, but they didn't want a big guy necessarily, because they felt like they got their big guys with the Claypools, with St. Brown. They wanted a guy like kind of in the Darnell Mooney mode where he can create separation with quickness and speed, and DJ Moore fits that bill right there. So they fulfill that need right there. They're probably going to draft another receiver. I'm saying my third, fourth round, see how the thing falls out. But in terms of big money, I think they're done a receiver for right now.
All right, let me start bring in some of our other Barroom show hosts. I'm going to start with Dan Aguirre here. Dan, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear your beautiful voice, Dan. Listen, Dan, I looked at the previous drafts for the Chicago Bears. I think 5 out of the last 6, they either traded away their thank you very much, not a zilch show. He tipped us $5. The loss of DJ Moore could give the Bears the number 1 pick next year. We will see. Well, it's not next year's pick, though, right? Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
The first round pick is for next year. Yes, it's the
right.
Second round pick. It's in 2025.
That's right. I'm sorry. But then I wanted to have you go back into your memory banks. The Bears have been dealing their number 1 draft pick for several years now. It seems like every draft they're either moving up a little bit, like with the Mitchell Trubisky trade, or they're dealing it completely away. What say you about this and how it continues the history of the number 1 pick being such a marketable item for the Bears?
It does feel good, though, to think that, oh, man, we're the one with 2 first-round picks next year. Normally, it's like, well, we've got to trade our first-round pick to move up to get Justin, or the Khalil Mack thing, or like you said, Mitchell Trubisky. And we're the team that's going to have 2 first-round picks next year. One thing I wanted to comment on that Danny said, that not to steal or plagiarize what his thought, because honestly, it was the only criticism that I had of the trade too internally, was that, man, that second-round pick, why didn't they get the higher one? So I completely concur with his thought on that. What was it, 39 versus 61?
Yep, they got 39 was the Carolina pick. They got the 61st pick, which Carolina got from San Francisco in the Christian McCaffrey trade.
I didn't remember the exact, pick that they would have gotten, but I knew that I was like, man, they could have gotten the Panthers second-round pick versus the McCaffrey one. So, but all in all, I mean, as a Bears fan, as you know, if you listen to anything I say on here, the strongest thing to take away from me is that we we got another pick, but I'm so happy that this solidifies that Justin Fields is not going to be moved, because if they were going to trade Fields, they would have stayed up higher and drafted another quarterback, in my opinion.
Well, it's interesting. I think, as people in the chat have been saying about the value of DJ Moore, this tweet from Mike K, who covers the Panthers for Carolina, he has outstanding resources within the Carolina Panthers organization. And he tweeted out that the Bears made wide receiver DJ Moore a must in the trade discussions with the Panthers. They were adamant that he be included in the deal. And perhaps that is why it's a lower second round pick as opposed.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Actually, I had read. I'm sorry to interrupt. I had read that Carolina was offering a 2025 first round pick, but Ryan Poles insisted on DJ Moore instead of that.
You all may recall. I'm sorry, step on you. I don't recall whom actually tweeted this, but it was midway through last season when the Bears were still technically in it and they were losing close games. Someone reported last year that the Bears were interested in DJ Moore in the 2022 season. I think we talked about at the time, and that ended up being Chase Claypool that we made the trade for. But there were reports at the time that the Bears were interested in DJ Moore in the middle of last season. So I'm not surprised by this.
Mm-hmm. I'm not either. And, I don't know if there's a bigger Bear fan of Justin Fields than Dan Aguirre. And I think that this trade, as some people in Danny Shinman is probably tied with you. I think that this trade illustrates that the Bears have either total confidence in Justin Fields and are all in, or are saying this is the year we're going to give him all the resources he needs. Now he's got 3 quality wide receivers in Claypool, Mooney, and Moore, and we're going to build up this offensive line and get him a stud running back so that this offense should be ready to go, and it should not be the worst passing offense in the National Football League. Anyone disagree or want to comment on that?
No, I agree. I think that they believe in Justin Fields, but they also gave themselves a little bit of an out with next year's 2 first round picks next year, because I told you next year's draft is going to have projected 2 quarterbacks that are going to be, everyone's going to be chomping at the bit to get at, and that's Drake May from North Carolina and then obviously Caleb Williams from USC. So with 2 first round picks, a second round pick in 2025, Poles, if he wants to, he's got ammunition to move up if he needs to get a quarterback if he wants to go ahead and kind of double down and just kind of give himself some leeway there in case Justin doesn't pan out. Of course, that's not the expectation here. My hope is that they use those picks to get Marvin Harrison Jr. and give him another true big number 1 receiver from Ohio State for next year's draft. But we'll see how that plays out.
Cheers to Hugh Heavens with the nice $10 tip. Truly appreciate it, Hugh. You've been a long-time supporter of the Barroom. Really appreciate the $10. I'm going to be taking care of my arm and my fix later on. Great job. Let me bring in Mr. Nomad. Nomad, how are you, my friend?
Whoa. That's all I can say is whoa. I got a chance to doze off for a couple of minutes today. Next thing you know, I'm thinking I'm dreaming. I feel like, damn, Earth is moving under me. I'm like, what in the hell? Am I in California in my dream? I'm having a weird dream. But then I snapped out of it. I was like, there's no dishes breaking, no glasses broken, none of that. And I looked at Twitter, and it happened. And I was just like, it took me a minute for it to really sink in of what it actually was. It's kind of foggy. But once I really focused on it and thought about what they got out of the deal, man, I'm thrilled with it, because it means a couple of things. It means that they coveted pushing the chips into the middle of the table for Justin Fields, making sure that he got a weapon out of this situation for sure. They got that in DJ Moore, who, if anybody wants to argue and wrestle with me about if he'd be the number 1 receiver on the board in the draft right now, we can do that. But I think he's better than everybody in the draft right now. So to me, they got 2 top 10 picks right now. Also, the value of that number 1 pick next year with the rookie quarterback, and you just took the number 1 player off the team, the number 1 receiver, it's going to be pretty high. So overall, I think it was a great move. It was brilliant that they got it done now so that they can lock up some of those, which I assume are going to be trench moves in free agency. And I think we're going to have a heavy defensive draft.
Hey, does anybody know how many more years DJ has on his current contract?
Ooh,
3
that's a
years.
great question.
3 years and $50 million, I believe, is what he has. Yeah, I think he signed an extension, obviously. So he's got 3 years. I believe it's averaging about $17.5 million a year. So obviously that knocks down now what the Bears have available in free agency. I believe it went from 90 something down to 75 million, if I'm not mistaken.
That is a great question. So he is locked up. Hopefully Claypool has a big season, and then they'll extend him. And the same thing with Mooney. Those guys might be battling each other for the big-time extension that they both would love to see. Do you see that as a problem at all, Dan Aguirre, that you got 2 wide receivers who are coming up for contracts next season?
In past history, for some reason, the Bears, like, they had Graham and Conway both come up at the same time, and they decided to let Graham walk. But on the other side of the ball, at the time, Nathan Vasher and Charles Tillman were both due at the same time, and they re-signed both of them. So hopefully if both guys are in the contract, they'll keep them together, because you want that continuity for Justin and to continue building that. If you don't mind me shifting just a second, you were mentioning Mike McGlinchey before I came on with Danny. I apologize for the ambiguous reference here, but I know I saw earlier in the week that McGlinchey told a radio show somewhere that he was basically already locked in to leaving San Francisco, and that deal was coming into fruition as soon as free agency was beginning. So, I mean, that sounds like tampering, but whatever. Yep. But it could be the Bears then.
Yeah, it could be
very well.
Yeah, it could be. I hope it's not. I'm like I said, I'm not a huge McGlinchey fan. I like him coming out of Notre Dame, but he tore his tricep, I want to say 2 years ago, and he just hasn't been the same player since then. And and he's 28, looks like he's going on 35. I think his body's been beat up over the years. I just don't think he's really an upgrade, to be honest with you, over a guy like Riley Reif. I mean, Riley Reif, when he got in there, I know he's old, I know he's not great, but when he got in there last year, he solidified right tackle for us. And I think, McGlinchey is just a big name, but he's not really a guy that was going to come in here and is going to solidify right tackle for the next five seasons. I'm like, all right, Justin Fields is good now at right tackle. No, so I'd rather take my shot at one of these young guys in the draft. You have bookend tackles with Braxton Jones and left tackle, and then whoever you pick at number 9, presumably. You have your tackles hopefully solidified. You have, a right guard in Tevin Jenkins. Center is a big need for me, guys. And I've been on Draft on Tap. I've been saying it over and over again. Center is a position that I've been scouting heavily in this draft. Hopefully they feel the same way. They could bring in someone here to kind of, either a young guy or someone, coming off his rookie contract that they can feel could be a replacement there, a permanent solution there at center. And left guard, we talked about Whitehair. Whitehair is just a guy right now for me. He's not horrible, but he's not great. He's making good money. I think if you cut him, I want to say it's like an $8 or $9 million hit on the cap. So he's still serviceable. Maybe you trade him. Maybe you if you get a Skoronski from Northwestern, you plug him in at left guard. You can trade Whitehair. You might get a 6th round pick or something like for him. But we'll see. But the Bears currently have 10 picks. I assume they're going to probably end up with 12 or 13. Just the way Ryan Poles does it. He probably trade on a couple of times. But another thing was, they had 3 picks in the top 100 coming in before this trade. And I was anticipating they were going to have like 5 or 6. I was hoping they would have 5 or 6 after the trade. And yet they only have 1 extra pick in the top 100, which is another thing why I'm disappointed in this somewhat disappointed in this trade. I'm not totally poo-pooing the trade. There just leaves me wanting more. And I wanted a couple more picks, maybe 1 or 2 more in the top 100 to kind of solidify your all the positions of need that you have.
Aldo, can I ask you one question? I'm sorry.
Sure,
go ahead.
please. No, go ahead.
This is shifting a little bit, but I wanted everyone, Nomad, anyone else wants to comment on it, because the guy that really wants to come back here, I'm not saying that we should, but a guy that really wants to come back here is Robbie Gould. And he's a free agent again. He still lives in Chicago. He's doing radio hits already in Chicago. For ESPN, he's going to be there. Cutler's going to be there. Anyway, what do you think? We got this money. I mean, you got Cairo Santos who's like, nah, I really don't want to try that field goal. It's a little windy. Versus a guy that thinks he can always make it, whether he does or not is a different thing. But Robbie's been salivating to be back with the Bears for a couple of years now. He tried to leave San Francisco once before. They franchised him. What do you all think? Is Robbie
What do you think,
someone you
Nomad?
do that?
Go ahead, jump in,
It
Nomad.
makes- I mean, depending on what he's trying to get out of the deal, I mean, it makes nothing but sense to bring him back. He's probably one of the more accurate quarterbacks we've had in the league in the past 10, 12 years, at least. Probably longer than that. I don't know how long he's been in the league, but yeah, he's a
05.
very accurate. How much? How long?
2005s when the Bears got him from New England when he didn't make the team that year. He was doing construction work when the Bears signed him midway through the season around week 8 or 9 that year.
I have no problem with Robbie Gould coming back here. If that's, I mean, he's solid, he's accurate, and you put that guy out there and you don't worry about it. And so,
Cliff
no
mentions
problem.
Matt Gay from the Rams. The Rams did not tag Matt Gay, so he might be available too. The Rams are probably having a fire sale now because A-Rob and a number of other players are out there for the taking. Let me bring in my guy, Mr. Shorty. There he is, my son, my younger brother. Don't we look alike? Look at this. Unmute yourself and we can hear you then.
You do kind of we do kind of look like each other. It's kind of weird.
It is very weird.
How do I sound? Is my mic okay?
You sound wonderful. So what's your impression of this trade? I know your immediate reaction was I'm a little underwhelmed, but now after you've gathered more information, are you feeling a little more positive?
I am. Yeah, I agree with Danny there. I was a little underwhelmed at first, but the more that I look at it, because at first I should say that I read it while I was working, so I thought it was a 24 and a 25 first round pick, and I would say that if I was underwhelmed by that at first, then that would be sad, because that would have been amazing if we got that, but then realizing that it was a 2025 second round pick, I was a little more underwhelmed. But then I got to really thinking about it, and there's, the Panthers could end up with the first round pick next year if they gave up their best, a chance at a new quarterback succeeding. And that guy came to this team, and they also lost Christian McCaffrey last year, let's not forget. And they're starting over with a new head coach. So they could be right up there, and the Bears are sitting there with the first or second pick. And if Justin Fields ends up being everything that we think he is, then we trade that and we're set up for the next, 3 years. And if Justin Fields is not, then we're sitting there with the first or second pick and we have a chance at something else. It's almost like an insurance policy. So I'm excited. The fact that we got DJ Moore out of it, I would still love to see Jackson Smith Najigba on the team, but if that didn't happen and we still got another receiver or whatever, I'd be happy right now going with what we have, because I have confidence that Claypool in year 2 will be better in this offense. And Mooney, I'm concerned about Mooney's injury with the leg, and who knows, that's why I would like it like a Jackson Smith Najigba as like an insurance policy to Mooney, I should say. But I think that this pick really works out well for the Bears, because what happens if there's a quarterback sitting there at 9 still? They could trade back to, 15 or something. Or
Washington at 16 could be a prime candidate to trade back with.
Thank you, Danny. And pick up more, picks. And then who would you draft at that pick? Maybe a Jack Campbell if he's still sitting there. If you look at that guy, man, he looks like
not an off ball linebacker, Shorty. What they need is they need guys up front. And again, this is all going to be predicated on what they do in free agency. That's this week's going to be big in terms of where they go. Yeah, if they go out there and they lock up McGlinchey, for example, even though I wouldn't be happy with it, but if say they do that, that's their starting right tackle next year. Jackson Smith and Jigba could be a possibility at number 9. They could trade down and take him as well. So, don't rule that out, because, you brought up a great point. Mooney and Claypool are going into the final year of their contracts. This would be their way of getting their insurance policy in case one or both those guys leave via free agency. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Don't totally rule out the receiver there. I just don't think it's going to be a receiver, because again, it's all going to be predicated by what happens in free agency. I know next week I'll be on here saying, they're going receiver, depending on what they do in free agency, for example. So it's just what they've done right now is they've gave themselves a lot of options, right? And one of the options, and I will not rule out, although unlikely, but I will not rule it out, is trading back again. again, if one of those quarterback drops down, if it's a Will Levis, for example, like I said, Washington could be a team. I know Tennessee took a kid last year in the 3rd round, but they're not, doesn't seem to be sold there. They have number 11 pick. You never know. There could be another team that could be lurking there for a quarterback, young quarterback. So
that could be your scenario, Aldo, with Anthony Richardson sitting there.
And I was told the Texans are not taking a quarterback at number 2. Whether that's true or not, again, this is lying season. But say the Texans take Will Anderson at number 2. They have a defensive-minded head coach. They can use Will Anderson, but they have the 12th pick. They could say, oh, there's a quarterback sitting here, maybe Bryce Young, the guy they could have taken number 2 at number 9. Next thing you know, that now Texans now are going to be trading up with the Bears at number 9. So it all could play out in different scenarios. So, we can't just say, for example, this is what they're going to go with now because of this. Next week is going to help us a great deal in terms of tell us what they could potentially go for. But then the way the draft falls, there could be different scenarios that come up that none of us saw happening. So anything can happen. But if they stay at 9 right now, I'm thinking it's going to be either offense or defensive lineman.
Let me go around the horn here. I got a question. Just talk in the chat room about a running back. Bijan Robinson, of course, is widely considered to be the top running back in this year's draft. I have been saying for several weeks now that I truly believe that the number 1 running back for the Chicago Bears is going to be a rookie. They will undoubtedly sign a veteran, but I don't think they're going to sign a heavily priced veteran, not with so many good running backs in this draft. So I'll start with you, Dan Aguirre. You know the history of the Chicago Bears running backs. You know how important it has been traditionally for this franchise. And I also believe that the running back is making a comeback in terms of because of the shell defenses all these teams are facing. Is like, all right, give it to the running back. We'll pick up 10 easy yards. So I'll ask you first, Dan Aguirre, where would you like to see the Bears draft a running back? Clearly not the 1st round, but 2nd or 3rd maybe?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's contingent on what they do in free agency. But like you said, they got Matt Forte in the 2nd round. Neil Anderson was a 1st round pick. Obviously, Walter's a 1st round pick. Anthony Thomas, a 2nd round pick. And I know a lot of people forget that he was a good player and was Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2001. So, yeah, you can get someone in the 2nd round. And obviously they traded to get Thomas Jones, but he was a former 1st round pick drafted right before Urlacher. So, I hate that both guys got franchised, but being with the Raiders and the Giants. But maybe if you let David Montgomery walk, like I was telling you on Tuesday, if Henry becomes available, or even Leonard Fournette, whom I advocated the Bears getting when he went to Tampa, if you recall, when Jacksonville cut him. I like that kind of back, like a LeGarrette Blount, Tyrone Wheatley kind of smash mouth power guy. I feel like the Bears have never really had that since Walter, the guy who would just run your ass over, even though Walter's only like 5'10", but someone that's just a big bowling ball. And I don't think we have that now on the roster, even though David Montgomery breaks a lot of tackles. I still would like to have that big-bodied Derrick Henry kind of guy if it's plausible. But if you're telling me that they're going to draft a kid in the 2nd round, especially considering now you have 2 2nd-round picks, even though the other one – no, they lost the one to Claypool. That's right. Either way, if they take a draft pick in the 2nd round and use that, allocate that to a running back, I'm not going to be opposed. Yeah. But I do want the offensive line built more than anything to protect number 1.
I think you're right. Line of scrimmage is the priority. Nomad, what do you think about a running back?
I still think the running back that I was hoping they would get was Josh Jacobs. They did right by franchising him. I still believe had they not, I think the Bears would have been interested. I know people feel different about that, but I see now that he's gone, I see Miles Sanders as the best free agent to get. He's perfect for the system that we run. He's explosive. He can hit it downtown. I think he's valuable. And I also believe that there are some really good running backs in the draft that can really bolster you in that way too. And they don't have to be drafted early. Guys like Kendre Miller, Israel Abikanda. I gave you a list of guys, although just a bunch of dudes that are back there that people aren't paying very much attention to. But in free agency, I still think with the connections we have between Ian Cunningham and probably Miles. I think Miles Sanders, I wouldn't rule that out, man. I swear I wouldn't, depending on what they can get him in as far as a dollar amount, I think it's a good possibility.
Mr. Shorty, you got a comment while I watch Jordan Silver cream all over himself over this trade? He says, I'm sitting here rock hard over this trade. What do you think about a running back and where the Bears should acquire one, Mr. Shorty?
That's an old phrase I used to use when I was much younger. Boner vision. Like, you think about when you have a boner and you're ready to go, you know? You have like a different frame of mind, right?
Yes, you do.
It's kind of a version of boner vision.
Uh-huh.
We sit here with the possibilities of so much happening from this trade, and we sit with a lot of picks as it is, multiple picks in multiple rounds, and I think there's more to come. As far as answering the running back question, are you asking me if he was sitting there, Bijan Robinson at 9, if we should take him?
No, I'm just asking, where would you like to see the Bears attack the running back problem? What round would you like to see them draft?
Well, I think that by the time we get done with this, they're going to have, if it stands as is right now, I would like to see a running back drafted. If they can get a good one in with the first third-round pick, or they only have one third-round pick. If they can get one in the third round, or maybe with the second-round pick, I'd be happy with that, because I think there's some value to be had in the running backs this year, because I think we need speed. And if we can get a speedy back in one of those rounds, maybe it's a little too high. I don't know. It really depends on how the draft board goes. We got Tajay Sharp on open mic in what round? Nomad, was that like the 5th or something?
He was way back there.
I'd be happy with that. Yeah. I mean, I know it's
All
a stupid mock draft, but it was.
Hey,
I don't know.
Sometimes mock drafts could turn out to be prophetic. Danny, what do you think, man?
Well, although my theory about using first round picks on running backs, but there, guys. Having said that, there are 2 backs in this draft that, in my opinion, are going to be special backs, and Bijan Robinson is one of them. But everyone's sleeping on Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. The comp that I see, and the comp that a lot of people see, is another Alvin Kamara. He's a threat out of the backfield in terms of the pass catcher. He brings you that 4.3 speed out of the backfield. I think him. And that, people wanted Saquon Barkley for explosiveness. Draft this kid, Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, Gibbs, may go in the first round. Make a team like keep an eye on a team like Philly. Keep an eye on a team like the Chiefs, possibly. And then that tail in the first round. Although the Chiefs got Pacheco last year, so we'll see if they go into the running back here. But if he slips in that second round, that's why that 39th pick, that the higher end of the Carolina pick, would have been nice to have, because now you're in that territory. Now you can move up to go get a kid like Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round, which I think will give you great value, because he's a first round talent. You can got him at the top of the second round. That would have been huge. And I'm telling you, explosive kid, explosive running back with Justin Fields in the backfield, with DJ Moore on the outside and Darnell Mooney. And now you're adding weapons. Now you're adding weapons to this offense. You're adding speed to this offense. That would, and Bijan Robinson is my top rated running back. I love the kid as well. But I don't draft running backs in the first round, and Robinson's going to go in the first round. So, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a kid. If he dropped in the second round, that's a guy I would target hard in the top of that second round. So, give you that big play speed element. But again, this is all predicated on solidifying your offense and defensive lines first. If you still have holes or needs heading into the draft on either offense or defensive line, you got to fill those up first and foremost. That's it. No more drafting safeties or corners first and second round. Go and solidify your offensive line. What's that?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What if Andre Carter's sitting there at 9?
Andre Carter, the kid from Army?
Oh, I'm sorry. The kid from Georgia. Carter from Georgia.
John Carter? Yeah. I mean, again, we touched about it earlier. Depending on why he's dropping, are there more legal issues coming out? And then again, all 32 teams are investigating Jalen Carter now after what happened to him at the combine. If it's just what it is now, it's not going to get worse than it is now. And if he drops to number 9, that's a home run right there, because you get your 3 technique. Even if you went and you signed Draymond Jones in free agency or Hargrave in free agency, you do not pass up on a talent like a Jalen Carter. So that's why, unless his legal troubles are worse, I just can't see him dropping down to number 9. He's just that damn talented. So, but if he's there, yes, you plug him in there.
As a follow-up question, since we're all Dans here, you, me and Dan, and I actually have a Bears tattoo on my skin of the GSH my skin is being ripped apart and the jersey is underneath. As Dan Bears fans, do you think the McCaskies would select a player like that at 9, or at all?
Well, again, it all depends on what else comes out. If it's just this right now, that what we know right now, and again, there's a lot that we don't know about. So if nothing else is there, if it's just this, and he's not going to be, indicted or arrested or whatnot, or charges or anything like that, he's a 21-year-old kid, did something stupid, did something dumb. Unfortunately, the worst part of it is 2 young people lost their lives in this situation. And that's the worst part of it. But right. So, if it's just a 21-year-old kid, did something, we talked about it last night, although on Draft on Tap, which one of us in college didn't do something stupid that now as adults we regret, and we're like, well, how do we get ourselves in that position? So, as long as there's nothing else, and I keep stressing that, nothing else that's going to come out of this. If he just, he was racing, he got scared, unfortunately 2 people died and he lied about it. If that's the worst of it, I don't think, he didn't do anything to kill these, these people. He was just doing something stupid as a young person. I just think it's not something that you just banish the kid and just take him off your draft board. But again, we haven't done the background check on him.
Right.
There's stuff leaked out that, prior to all this, that there's some character issues off the football field. The fact that this got leaked and came out the day he was interviewing with teams tells me that someone at Georgia, whether it's Kirby Smart or someone there, did it intentionally, because Kirby Smart runs Athens, Georgia. Nothing goes in and out of there without his approval. So that tells me that there's some bad blood between Carter and the coaching staff, and that could be a red flag. So that's things
maybe the same person who told Todd McShay that there's some character concerns with him. So clearly someone at Georgia
they've been trying to break him down since then. So that could be a red flag, and that's something, again, that's what these NFL teams have, these private investigators. They investigate the heck out of these prospects, and they try and find every single thing that they can find about them. So if everything comes back clean, other than the only thing that's bad is what we know. You have to, the talent wise, you have to draft them. But again, what that's going to have to be determined. That'll play out in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Danny's right, man. That guy's too talented just to let an infraction like that, even though people passed away. But it's when you're that age, man, dude, you got to give people a chance and the time and the space to grow up and become men. And that's what it is. If you feel like you have the proper structure in place and the proper, the people that teach around you, put them in position to be a leader in his room. You know what I mean? Put him in position to where he has to accept some responsibility. And that's what changes a young man, and he starts to become a man. It did for me. I was something else. I was a piece of work when I was his age, but I wasn't a person that you couldn't coach and you couldn't reach because I was young. So I just don't like the idea of everybody so willing to just sweep him under the rug, and because somebody said he's got character issues and the reports about him out there. It's all worth noting, but it's worth in context something to think about moving forward.
Yeah, my only concern with the whole issue is I want to know more about why he left the scene. What did he see? Did he see that his teammate, but did he see an accident and not call for help? Because that would be, to me, morally reprehensible at whatever age. If you see a teammate and a woman in a car that's been in an accident and you drive away without considering calling for help or anything, then that to me is morally reprehensible and too egregious of an issue to overlook. What are you going to do with teammates when they're in trouble? So now I'm just totally speculating, but those are some of the questions that have to be answered over the next few weeks. Dan Aguirre, you got an opinion on this?
Yeah, I heard he said his hero was Senator Ted Kennedy. So you know where his thought process was. I'm kidding. Yeah, no, if he's there,
you almost made Danny laugh.
if the talent is what you all say, because as I've told you humbly so many times, I don't follow college football, but if he's as good as everyone says he is, and for some reason he's there, then you got to take him.
Yeah.
And that's what your coaches are paid for.
Mhm.
That's right. That's right. You know, also too, man, I can remember being in I ain't gonna say the same circumstances, but similar circumstances where guys were out drinking. You know, when you're in college town, that's what people do. They go out, they drink, and you know, the smart ones get in the car with somebody that hasn't been drinking. But quite often, you end up in a car if you're not going very far. You know, like usually the bars are right down the street from the student housing and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure what the scenario looked like for Jalen Carter. But I'm pretty sure his first instinct was, I'm getting the hell out of here. I've been drinking.
And just to add some context, this happened after they came from a party for celebrating the national championship. So
Right.
I'm sure there's some drinking, some alcohol involved on both sides, Carter's side, and maybe even the driver that passed away. Unfortunately, I think that could have played a part in this. And maybe he was drunk, and he was speeding, and he just freaked out. He's a 21-year-old kid, and he's got his whole life coming ahead of him in terms of the draft. He probably just thought of, hey, again, just like I'm speculating, I don't know the facts here either, but 21-year-old kid been drinking, was racing, some in the accident. Maybe he didn't even just saw the car flip and just kind of said, "Oh, he freaked out. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I don't want to be caught in this," and just took off and doesn't know what the ramifications were of the people in the car. Again, just speculation, but I could see it happening. Especially if you've been drinking, especially if you're a high-profile draft pick that's going to project to go number one overall. You don't want to be caught up in something like that. And 21-year-old kid made a mistake, possibly. We'll see.
B Minor makes a point here. He says he heard that Jalen was way ahead of the accident. They came back, but people told him to leave. And so, that is definitely plausible to me. So
there's details that we don't know, guys, and just until everything's investigated. That's why I say, like, as long as there isn't anything egregious, like Aldo pointed out, that he did, whether he came back and he saw people in trouble and just decided to leave to save his ass. Those are things that obviously take into effect. So as I'm saying, like, all 32 teams are doing their due diligence here on this kid. But yeah, assuming it's nothing, crazy, if he's there, you gotta take him. Again, my biggest thing, although we touched on at the beginning of the show here, is Tyree Wilson is probably out of the range of the Bears unless they go ahead and trade up and try and get him. But again, that was a kid I was frothing at the mouth to have him play defensive end for the Bears.
And again, in the pure speculation mode, they may have seen the medicals on Tyree and said, this could be a Larry Ogunjobi kind of thing. And so we're willing to go past, the fourth pick and go down to 9 because we don't think he's healthy enough to pick at 9. So who knows? It's all speculation.
I heard Chris Ballard wasn't going to give up 2 first-round picks to move up 3 spots. So that's also something that he had dug his heels and he wasn't going to do it. And so, Chris Ballard is a guy that once he digs in his heels, he's a guy that's not going to do it. So that there's rumors now that Carolina is going to shop the pick, and some people are saying they might get more than the Bears. Good luck, because the one thing I know for sure is this is the best offer Ryan Poles got. That's the thing I know, because he would have not done it if there's another offer out there better than this. So that's the thing in terms of the Carolina trading the pick. That'd be dumb in my opinion. You give up a pretty good haul to just move back a couple more spots. So
I don't think Carolina would trade because they were trying to get Stafford a few years ago, and then they were trying to get Deshaun Watson last year. So to me, that says that they really, really want to get a quote unquote number 1 quarterback. And now they can take their pick. I assume they take the kid from Alabama. I don't think they're trading. I think they take the pick first overall.
Frank Reich's history in terms of quarterback, he likes bigger, taller quarterbacks. So for me, it's going to be C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson. A big tell here is Jimmy Garoppolo was scheduled to meet with Carolina along with the Texans and the Raiders once free agency starts. If he chooses Carolina, then that pretty much seals it. It's going to be Richardson, in my opinion, because he's going to be able to sit back there and for a year or two that he needs at that time. But if he doesn't go to Carolina, then obviously I think C.J. Stroud is going to be the guy they pick.
Okay, Danny Sherman. Okay, one quick question for Danny. True or false? You're going to turn into the Hulk if they pick Paris Johnson at number 9, aren't you?
No.
You got to take your shirt off.
No, I mean, Paris Johnson is my second tackle, but it's close between him and Broderick Jones from Georgia. As a matter of fact, Paris Johnson is a guy that it's kind of similar to Braxton Jones in terms of he's a guy that's got to get stronger. He gets bull rushed a lot, and he plays. He's about 6'5", 6'6", I think it is. He elevates his pads a lot, so he's gonna have to work on that. But he's played right guard. He started at right guard the year before. He moved to left tackle this year, so he's got experience playing on the right side, which is where I would see him. I put him at right tackle. Broderick Jones to me is just a more physical presence at the line of scrimmage, but he's also a 1-year starter. But he's more talented in terms of getting out to that next level, that second level run fit, and being able to eliminate those second level blocks. But again, he's gonna have to adjust now, moving from left side to right side. He's never played right on the right side in his career. So there's things you can like, and but just like by both players. But for me, it's Jones followed by Johnson. But if the Bears think it's Johnson followed by Jones, I wouldn't disagree with them. But you gotta solidify offense and defensive line in free agency and the draft. If they picked a corner with the number 9 pick, or they picked a off the ball linebacker, I would lose my shit. But not when you pick an offensive lineman. No.
Well, hold on now. If they shore up some things, some key core pieces in free agency, you still gonna be upset about that? I'd love to take Trenton Simpson in the top 10 or 15.
No, Trent Simpson's not a top 10 player for me. He's not. He's an off-ball linebacker. He's a middle linebacker. He's a guy maybe you can play on the outside, but I would not use an off-the-ball linebacker at top 10. He's not special like that. For me, like again, depending on what to do on the offense, defensive line. If you still have a hole at right tackle, you got to go offensive line.
Great stuff, guys. Hey, let's tackle some of the questions that I've been collecting here. Let's start with Hair Bear, and a couple of other people have asked about Isaac Ciamolo, the free agent right guard, I believe he plays. Any thoughts on him and him potentially being somebody the Bears might pursue?
Again, he's a guard. He's a mauler. He's a guy that Philadelphia has developed. He's a right guard, I believe. We have Tevin Jenkins there. It just kind of tells you what the Bears think of Tevin Jenkins if they go after a kid like that. So I mean, right now, I don't think they would go get a kid like Ciamolo, but we'll see what happens. But I think they're going to probably just kind of concentrate on getting that defensive line shored up in free agency, and maybe I think they're going to get a nickel corner. And I keep saying this, and I think they're going to get a nickel corner, but I think they're going to do it in veteran free agency, or maybe like second or third round of the draft. But I think they're going to get a nickel corner as well.
Any thoughts on that, Nomad?
Oh, I think he's exactly what they will be looking for in a guard, but he's not the only one, depending on the price of one of those guys. But he's that. I got my lunch pail and my hard hat. I just go in there and get the shit done, and I keep you off of my quarterback. And you have to covet that. I like the connections between Ian Cunningham and those guys. I'm sure he was instrumental in putting that line together there. I also think there's a guy named Andre Dillard that could be a possibility. They have 2 starting left tackles. I've said that many times, but I think 2 offensive linemen from Philly is not out of the question.
But then, so you're saying you would bench Tevin Jenkins then for Ciamolo?
No, Ciamolo can play both sides. And he's been known to play center.
What about Whitehair?
Whitehair, let him go.
Danny, I have a question for you. PJ, one of our chat members who was on open mic night on Wednesday, brought up a great point about Tevin Jenkins. He thinks that we should move him back to right tackle. And I first, it kind of stumped me. I couldn't figure out why until I thought about it. If he's 6'6" with neck and back problems, and he's playing in the guard position where he's taking that immediate impact off the line, wouldn't it be better to move him back to right tackle and get somebody else to insert at right guard?
Well, coming out of Oklahoma State, I always projected him on the right side. I projected him as a right tackle, probably eventually inside a guard. And the fact that they drafted him and told me he was going to play left tackle was a joke to me. But for me, I think right now that he settled in at right guard last year, and he finally saw him playing well. The injuries are something that could you say playing inside a guard, like I said, could be more impactful to his his body. Football is an impact sport. I think whether you put him at tackle or guard, you're not going to be able to hide some guys from injury. So I just like the fact that he developed finally. He got settled into a position at right guard, and I saw him produce, and I saw him get better, and I saw him get that confidence back. And And I just think that you can go solidify right tackle with this number 9 pick or in free agency, whatever you do. And now you have your right guard solidified with Jenkins. And I think you have your left tackle of the future. Then you have Whitehair for another year, possibly. And I think now you solidifying the offensive line. And I remember, and for left guard, they drafted this kid Carter last year in the 6th round, I think it was. They like him a lot. Yeah. Now he's raw, but they like him a lot. So I think, that could be a guy that could be seeing there as a potential left guard or replacement for Whitehair. So, again, the fact that they got their left tackle in the 5th round is a huge hit for Ryan Poles, because obviously, the money you save there, a young guy, and now you can solidify a right tackle in the draft possibly as well. I think you're building a nice formidable foundation of the offensive line. And I think now you can have a young unit kind of all grow together with Justin Fields, with DJ Moore, with Mooney, with Clement. Now you're seeing an offense come together. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. All right, we're getting questions about Peter Skoronski. Swanky has asked a couple of times, what do you guys think about Skoronski at left guard with the 9th overall pick? Nomad, I think you're for this, right?
No, not a guard. Not a guard at 9, no.
Okay. Tell me why.
I just don't think he's I think you have too many other positions in need to be reaching for a guard. That usually a sweet spot for the guards. It's unfortunate because guards get overlooked in the draft, running backs get overlooked, linebackers get overlooked, and it seemed to me the trend in the past 10 years has been 3rd round and back is usually the sweet spot for those guys. But he's got to be. No, I'm not messing. I wouldn't mess with him at 9 at all.
Anybody disagree with Nomad?
Nomad, let me ask you a question. And first of all, I agree with you. I think 9 is high for a guard, especially if you have, again, this could change, but going into the, talking now, what is it, March 10th, a lot of holes on this team. But what if Peter Skoronski turns into Zach Martin? Would you then hate the pick at number 9?
I'd regret it, but I wouldn't hate it. Looking at all the holes that we have, no, you gotta do what you need to do in really, really core positions and just never look back. If a guy turns out to be a monster, which he has the potential to be, you be okay with it because you were busy filling in all these potholes in your driveway. You got to smooth some of this stuff out.
That's the thing with Skoronski is it's unfortunate that he doesn't have the length to play left tackle, but I think he's got the talent to be a very damn good left guard. And again, my preference would be either the tackles, Johnson or Jones, depending on what you've done for agency. But if you solidify for agency solidify a right tackle via free agency, and then he's the best player available, you're gonna have to you can solidify your left side of your offensive line for years to come. And again, just building that wall in front of Justin Fields would be huge. Wouldn't be my top priority. So
if Johnson's sitting there at 9, I say you take him. If he's not, and Jackson Smith is, I say you take him.
I just see all the blue chip players on the board at 9, and I just can't imagine grabbing a guard right there. That's just unfathomable to me. I can't imagine.
Well, we don't know what's going to be available. We're just kind of assuming what's going to be available in terms of blue chip players.
Right.
I'm not going to get into my rant about how important guards are, but I will get into my rant about how important guards are. I still believe that the NFL has changed over the last 10, 15 years because quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball so quickly. It is much more important to have the middle of your offensive line stacked with talent and depth. The offensive tackles, you can scheme around their deficiencies. You can have chips. You can have plays away from the number 1 pass rushers. You can minimize that because of the distance they are away from the offensive line, from the quarterback. And in addition to that, we are seeing some of the top pass rushers being moved into the inside to take advantage of weak offensive line middles. And every quarterback will tell you what's the most important thing for me to throw accurately is for me to step up in the pocket without any interruption. Guards are vital. Now, would I take Pete Skoronski at 9? I'm not sure. It all depends on free agency, who's still on the board, and so forth. I frankly think that the defensive line is a much higher priority right now than the offensive line, particularly with the expected development that I'm seeing out of Justin Fields, where he won't be holding on to the ball as long as he has in the past 2 seasons. He'll be making quicker decisions, and so there'll be less stress on the offensive line. But that's not to say, hey, Retro, thank you very much again. But that's not to say we don't need to improve the offensive line. We certainly do, but it's defensive line first and then offensive line second. And if I'm not sure that I've got a great middle, then I'm taking whoever's available there in the middle, and I can pick up a veteran tackle. Like Danny, you said it yesterday on Draft on Tap. You brought up Jason Peters, right? And Riley Reef. Wasn't it you? Or somebody else. I mean, you can find a stopgap at the offensive tackle position, I think nowadays a little easier than you can at guard. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on that.
No, I mean, and that's things like I said earlier. Riley Reef was a guy that came in, filled in. I think did an admirable job. Again, he's up there in age. He's not what he used to be, but I think he came in. He solidified that right tackle spot. And again, that's I was talking about Reef over McGlinchey spending what is it, $17-18 million for McGlinchey. Or you get a guy like Reef and come in for half that and do a solid yeoman's work there. But obviously, I would prefer to get a young stud pillar there at right tackle. Again, solidify that. You have your bookend solidified, and now you move on. But in terms of what with Skoronski, what he does, obviously you don't want a guard in the top 10. You want more impact players. And that's the thing with the kid from Clemson, the linebacker. Simpson's a pretty good player, but again, I don't want an off the ball linebacker at number 9 when I need help up front, right? And then, if I trade down or fill up others' needs, different story. We'll take a look at that when that happens, but you got to solidify your offensive defensive lines in free agency and in this draft, and that's where I'm shooting for.
Dan Aguirre, I know you're not a draft Nick, so some of these names might be a little foreign to you, but what do you think about the overall theory about drafting a left guard in the 9th pick?
I've been agreeing with you on the Quentin Nelson thing for 5 years now. So I honestly think had the Bears, if Nelson hadn't been taken, the Bears were going to draft him versus Roquan. And I think the Bears would have already re-upped him too and wouldn't have traded him. So I think you're kind of absolved of all that vitriol that you received 5 years ago over the Quentin Nelson thing. I kind of agree with Nomad now based upon what's perceived from what I hear from Danny, for example, the experts here on the draft. That are saying all this immense talent is there. So if we can wait to draft a running back in the 2nd round, for example, then why couldn't you wait to draft a guard a little bit lower too? Although Quentin Nelson was, the aberration of the guard position. Although I agree with you that the guard internal line play is a lot more important than it was 15, 20 years ago. But I still think, like Nomad said, if all that talent's there, at the 9th pick, you better not draft a fucking guard. I mean, you can get a guard. You can sign a guard. Guards are important. They're not disposable, but with everybody else in the pool, let's take somebody that is valued more.
Yeah.
Just to tack on to what Danny what Dan Aguirre just said, just for the record, just today, 2 really nice guards just hit the market. One of them is Graham Glasgow from Denver, really nice. And another one is Will Hernandez. Probably won't cost you a hell of a lot of money. People could, we can fuss about who, if you think they're solid or not, but you're talking about what's affordable and as far as your budget versus what you can get later on in the draft.
Will's from the Giants, right?
He was with the Giants.
Yeah, I think the Bears, if you believe the reports, were interested in him a couple of years ago when he got drafted in the 2nd round, but he got taken first before the Bears could get him.
He doesn't fit the scheme anymore, guys. He's a big gapping, mauler at the line of scrimmage. These guys want, guys that are athletic, guys that can get out in space, guys that can get out in lead block and be guys that can block east and west, moving laterally and maintain their blocks and position. So, I don't think Hernandez fits it. Glasgow, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was playing center for the Broncos.
He can play all 3.
And I mean, again, I am a huge proponent of upgrading center. So, if he's healthy and he's willing to come in and play center or give him a shot, I'd give him a shot, because I think Lucas Patrick, to me, I know he can't play guard. I'm not sure. They tell me he can play center. We'll have to find out. But that's an area. The center position is an area of a lot high concern for me. That's why I've been digging into this draft class in terms of the players at center.
Bear Truth 9 has a question about Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive lineman from the Titans. Apparently, he scrubbed all mention of the Titans off of his social media. He's having some difficulties with his contract. The Titans are still hoping to get something done with him. But what do you think about Nomad? How familiar are you with Simmons, and what do you think if he's available? Do you think he's somebody the Bears might pursue?
Very familiar with him. And yes, they would be interested in him. And it appears to me, based on some of the moves they've made in the past this week, it looks like a teardown. Rand Carthon is tearing down. He's kind of getting ready to start from scratch. So I guess Jeffrey Simmons is getting a whiff of what's going on, and maybe he sees himself as not a person to be in their future. I don't know if they're going to stick with the 3-4 defense, or I don't know what they're about to do there, but apparently the new GM came in and said, hey, you know what, we need to clear some of this out of the off the budget and do some different things here. I'm sure I forget the coach's name. I'm sure he wouldn't be in agreement with that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that Jeffrey Simmons becomes available, depending on what they want to do moving forward.
Iceberg Slim, thank you very much for the $5 in the tip jar. That is very, very much appreciated. These tips that are coming in remind me of the days that I used to frequent strip clubs. I always would walk in with about 40 singles, and then I'd slip the dollar into the garter belt, and the girl would look at me and say, geez, you're no Iceberg Slim, man.
Always that guy getting a drink thrown on it, man.
First of all, you walk in with $40 singles. You're not gonna have much action in walking.
No, that's just for the tips.
You can get the ones with the bullet holes and stab wounds on them.
Yeah. The girls nowadays, they have credit card machines. They'll slide their credit card.
Wow, it's inside their vaginas, I'm sure.
Got all kind of cigarette burns on her and everything. Track marks.
Dan Aguirre, you want to comment on that?
I just sent you a video. I was like, man, I've watched this like 15 times straight now. I apologize for not paying attention. I admit that I've been watching this run that Fields had against Green Bay back in December, where he scores and makes a move, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is still our guy. Thank fuck. Oh, this is a PG show. Thank God.
That's not. God. It was supposed to be a PG show, but
I'm going to restrain. I want to be professional here. So
there you go. Well, yeah, the Bears released a top 10 plays of Justin Fields today, and the first or the top 4 or 5 were all run plays. Beautiful plays, and I'm not complaining. But let's reverse that this year. Let's make sure that they're pass plays. All right, let's see what else we got. Iceberg, thanks again a lot for that. Laz wants to know your thoughts, Danny Shimon, on Dean Lowry. That's the Northwestern guy.
I saw that he's a free agent. He's a guy that has been used as a 5 technique over in Green Bay. Obviously, no local kid from Northwestern. If you want to bring him in as a guy that can be a 1 technique, some depth. I don't know if Dean Lowry is a guy that's gonna really tip the scales for me, but definitely a solid guy that can get in there, give you some, a guy that can take out blockers and give you some pass rush, but he's not the 3 technique that I'm looking for. Guys I'm looking for are like guys like Javon Hargrave, Draymond Jones. Going back to that Jeffrey Simmons question, that's interesting. If it is true, if he is available, he's a guy that would be a nice fit. That guy is a wrecker in the middle of that defensive line, 6'4", 300+ pounds. A guy that can really just cause havoc. So I think he'd be a guy to invest in. Obviously, the big question is what is Tennessee looking for? I just talked about it earlier in the show. Do not trade these picks, these future picks you just got today in this big trade with Carolina, because you need these picks. So what does Tennessee want? Do they want a 2nd round pick for him? It might be worth giving them that 61st pick for a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. Now again, he's probably gonna want to get paid, so that's all got to be in consideration as well. So. We talked about maybe Tennessee moving up to number 9 if there's a guy, a quarterback that they see there. Maybe 11 and Jeffrey Simmons gets you to number 9. I don't know, just but it's definitely a guy that would be a nice fit in this system. A guy is a wrecker up front. a guy that would be. I'm sure the defensive coaching staff would love to have in that middle defensive line.
Any other thoughts on Dean Lowry before we entertain our next question? All right.
He's
Tua wants to know. Go ahead, Nomad, please.
No, go ahead. Get to the next one.
Tua wants to know about, is there a wide receiver in this draft that you would take over DJ Moore? And I think Nomad said earlier, DJ Moore, if he was being drafted this season, would be the #1 overall pick. Is there anyone that would disagree with Nomad on that?
Well, it's a little because we've seen DJ Moore produce at the NFL level. So obviously, and taking that into context, yeah, I mean he's probably the best receiver right now. But coming out of Maryland, he wasn't necessarily the guy I would take over hands down over Jordan Addison or Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just a couple of guys that I'm really high on here as well. So he'd be in the conversation. Obviously, he was a first-round pick. I think he went 24th overall in that first round that year. Carolina took him. So he's a guy coming out of Maryland. He was a guy that's hands were a little bit shaky for me. A couple bobble catches, double catches when he bobbles the ball. Kind of catching it with his frame. They were just inconsistent. Obviously, he's at the NFL level. He's gotten better. He's produced. So, obviously, taking that into consideration, yeah, he'd be better from these guys. These guys are all college players. None of them has, played a down of NFL football. So, but yeah, just coming out of Maryland, he was a guy who was explosive, has some speed, but also has some shaky, catches in terms of his hands, some question marks. But, obviously he's improved and is an NFL, NFL receiver. So is he a #1 receiver in the NFL? We'll have to see.
Mr. Shorty, when you had your mock draft the other night on your new hit show, Open Mic, who was the top selection? I'm assuming you traded down. Do you remember the first picks that were off the board?
Well, we did the draft the first time, and then I ended up hitting the wrong button, and I had so many tabs open that I closed out the first draft, and in that one there wasn't a quarterback off the board in the top 5. I don't think, Nomad, right?
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, I wanted him to kill that first one anyway because that was a sham. I don't know what
the like the third round, and I screwed it up. So
that was so unrealistic.
Yeah, I restarted it, and it was more realistic. And then it was Bryce Young. I think C.J. Stroud went first, and then Bryce Young was second. And I think there was 3 quarterbacks in the top 5, and that was much more realistic. But then
and you guys traded down?
We traded down twice, I think, right, Nomad? But I think we got right around to 9 or something.
I think we went the Texans, and then I think we got Carolina. As a matter of fact,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think it was. But our first pick was Lucas Van Ness.
Okay.
And then the second pick was we ended up getting Michael Schmitz. We ended up getting Tyjae Spears. We ended up getting if the Bears could have had that draft, we would be in the NFC Championship game this year. It was that good of a draft. We had like 16 total picks. It really was just for fun. It wasn't that realistic. It was just the pro football focus draft or whatever. It's the first trade was so unrealistic from the Texans. We had to change it just to remove some picks because it wasn't realistic. And we focused on not taking any picks in next year's draft because we wanted to just focus on this draft. So it wasn't as realistic as it should be, but we had a lot of fun with it though.
Hey, check this out. Notorious TBG is in the chat, and he has tipped us $10, $9.99. And he writes, in polls we trust, Moore is a stud that the Packers tried trading for their first rounder for a nice contract that gives us a legit #1 target, turning 1 pick into 4 and a bona fide stud. Let's fucking go. Fucking go. Bear down.
The notorious B.I.G. is with us tonight?
Well, it was PG, but it's not anymore.
Well, what's interesting, Notorious, is on the Mac and Reed show Wednesday night, check it out. The last 10 minutes of the show, both Mac and Reed give their top 5 songs from your catalog or your what's that word when you
your playlist?
No, your alter ego. Your alter ego. So I learned about a couple of new Notorious songs that I'd never heard before. That guy had a great sound. I actually just saw that movie. You guys see that Notorious movie that was done about 10 years ago? It's really well done.
Yeah.
What you think? What you think, Dan?
It was good.
Yeah, very good. Well, all right, let's move on to the questions because I can see this topic is not going anywhere. Laro wants to know, Danny, how do you feel about the cornerback, Christian Gonzalez?
Yeah, Christian Gonzalez really impressed at the combine. I mean, big corner with good speed, quick twitch fibers. I mean, he comes from an athletic family. I think around a 4.3, 840 at 6 feet. Slender built. I think he's a guy that's in competition with Devin Witherspoon to be the first corner taken. Not really a physical corner, so he's more of a cover guy, but definitely a guy that's going to be the first, second corner taken. So I think he's been slotted now to go to Detroit at number 6 overall. But Philly, a little late breaking news here. Well, not late, but maybe like a little under the cover here. But they gave Darius Slay, their top corner, the opportunity to go out and seek a trade, which is kind of weird because they already have James Bradbury, who's a free agent. So, that tells me that they're targeting a corner with that number 10 pick. So, a kid like, Christian Gonzalez or Witherspoon could possibly be a fit there with the Eagles. So, but obviously in terms of the Bears, I do not want them to draft a corner, maybe a nickel corner in the later rounds if they don't sign one free agency. But that's not going to be a guy for the Bears.
Moving on with the questions. Prospects at tackle. Who are your favorite offensive tackles? I know, Danny, you still haven't done your board. Nomad, you still haven't done your board. But talk to me about a couple of tackles that if they are there at number 9, you're saying, okay, that's for us. Go ahead, Nomad. You go first.
Oh, I'll give it to you in order. And I, not in any particular order because it's really a toss-up to me after I'm done evaluating the tape of how good these guys are. But it's Paris Johnson, it's Carter Warren, or it's Darnell Wright. To me, I think they're the cream of that crop to me as far as everything I've seen on tape. I like everything about all 3 of those guys.
What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, for me, it's right now it's Broderick Jones from Georgia, Paris Johnson second, and I'm still into looking at the Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, but so right now I'd say Darnell Wright, but Darnell Wright is a guy that's I'm kind of mixed on right now. So, but for sure, Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson are the top 2. Like I said, if the Bears pick either one of those guys, number 9, I wouldn't be upset because I think both guys can solidify again that right tackle spot for years to come.
I agree.
Dan Aguirre, I got a question for you. Javon Hargrave is now the top 3 tech defensive lineman available in this draft. Only problem is he's 30 years old. And so he wants that last big contract. Are you willing to spend $50-60 million on a 30-year-old defensive tackle, or are you willing instead to try to find a gem in the draft? What are your thoughts?
If you don't want to get Derrick Henry because you say he's 29, then it's hard to give all that coin out to someone that's 30 in the interior when it seems like they start falling off at like 31, 32 pretty early in the 30s. I mean, but if you told me they made the acquisition, I'm not going to be negative on here saying, oh, that was a terrible acquisition. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to be on the fence on it. I guess I would be looking to go another direction, but if the Bears did sign him, I'm not going to be disappointed per se.
Okay. Anybody have thoughts on Hargrave and whether the Bears should make a big investment on the DT from Philadelphia?
I don't like going old players right now. We're not to the point where we need to sign a veteran player that can help yet. I mean, I think that we should go young in the draft here with the defensive line and stack up in multiple ways, as well as the offensive line, and let them all just develop. You might need some help on the offensive line with another veteran maybe, or maybe there is an older veteran that you want to bring in. It's not going to be as expensive, but I think that it's through the draft right now. I think we're to that point.
What do you think, Nomad?
What's funny about everybody loves Hargrave. I love Hargrave. There's nothing about his tape that you don't like. His age, I'm okay with it because a lot of these guys mature well past their 30s and still have plenty of tread on their tires 3-4 years down the road. But I compared his tape, and I don't know if I was right for doing it, but I did when I got down to the last couple of 3 techs that I really like. And Eberflus, I just look at what he's done in the past. He likes bigger, more explosive 3 techs. And to me, the 2 guys that stand out to me is Hargraves and David Onyemata. And I gave Anyamata the leg up when I got done watching the tape. I think he's more powerful and more explosive than probably a little twitchier than Javon Hargrave to me. So I liked him better.
What do you think about Danny Shimon?
Yeah, in terms of Animata, that's a good guy to bring up there, Nomad. He's a guy that's very underrated on that Saints defensive front. A guy who always brings that physicality up front. Another guy is 30 years old. But if you ask me if I'm gonna between the two 30-year-olds, I think I would go with Hargraves because he gives you a little bit more in terms of a pass rush. But again, the guy that I'm earmarking, for the Bears to go out and get is this Draymond Jones kid from Denver, former Ohio State 3rd-round pick, really developed nicely. With under Vic Fangio, he was playing more of that 5 technique. They moved him, kicked him inside last year, and I think he's a guy that shows potential to be that future 3 technique. But if you want to double up and get a Animata and a Draymond Jones or Draymond Jones and a Hargrave, I would not balk at that because I said, we need to get that defensive line figured out quickly. And guys, we keep forgetting about the edge rushers. I mean, this team was led in sacks by its rookie safety. I mean, that's how poor this team was in terms of sacks. So, edge rusher is something that really, really need to look at. And again, at number 9, if a Tyree Wilson is gone, I think my next, pure, pass rusher, I'm assuming Anderson will be gone as well. My next pure pass rusher is going to be a guy like a Will McDonald, the kid Uzuma from Kansas State. But these are guys that are not going to be number 9. So again, you have to kind of see what's going to happen there in terms of how you're going to generate a pass rush. Obviously, interior defensive line is important, but also edge guys are important as well. So that's something that I'm curious to see how the Bears attack as well, because you cannot have. I don't think I've ever seen a team where their safety led them in sacks, and that's something that I don't think I recall ever seeing that before. And that's what happened last year with the Bears, which is pretty pitiful. So, that's what I'm saying. Defensive line, you got to attack it. Interior and on the edge as well. So, that's something we could keep in mind too with the number 9 pick is maybe an edge rusher there. The guys that we're talking about in terms of when we do our mock drafts here, we don't see any good big edge rushers there. So maybe they like someone that we don't know about, or maybe they just trade down and get more picks and then get someone in the middle of the first round. So, but yeah, that defensive line is something that you could, and David Onyemata is a guy that you can bring in. Zach Allen, from the Cardinals, is a guy that developed as well, a 5 technique, but he'll probably play more of a base defensive end, not a big pass rushing guy, but a guy who can give you probably 6-7 sacks and be a nice, edge setter on defense as well. So, these are names to keep an eye on here as well in terms of free agency.
Just really quick, man.
Danny, go ahead.
Danny's over there making a damn good point. But after studying so much Will McDonald's film, so much of it, and then looking at Will Anderson, I look at Will McDonald, and I don't know if I've seen in a long time a guy with such a complete package of moves.
I love McDonald. You can Aldo can attest to that. The guy I compared him to, Nomad, was remember Harold Landry when he came out of BC? He went to Tennessee. And that first step quickness, the bend, the ability to get perpendicular to the ground, that's what Will McDonald has. And Landry doesn't have the long arms of McDonald. McDonald has 34+ inch arm length. And I think just the fact that he stayed all 5 years at Iowa State really surprises me. My only thing with McDonald, obviously, he came at 239, and I just don't know if he's a guy you could legitimately put at defensive end as a hand in the ground and expect him to be a run defender. So we'll see how they use him. But you bring him in as a situational pass rusher early on and then get him bigger. I'm all for that. I mean, I absolutely love Will McDonald. The Azuma kid from Kansas State has a similar burst off the edge as well. So, there are some intriguing pass rushers, if you get past that, that middle half of that first round. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But yeah, getting pass rush both in the interior and on the outside is paramount for the Bears.
Nomad, you had any other thoughts on Will McDonald?
I grade him in the top handful of guys that I think overall athletes and just position just as good as anybody in the draft is probably him, Trenton Simpson, maybe a couple other guys down there. I mean, but he's different, man. I'm telling you, something about that guy is different, and it'd be foolish to not grab that guy because you don't want to worry about what you hadn't seen him do. You just adjust your fronts. If the guy is that good in that town, that many ways to get to the quarterback, you adjust your fronts to him. And so I just think really highly of him.
And I agree with you, man. But the thing is, and that's the thing. One of the things with Anderson was, which I just didn't think it was a scheme fit here. And that's why I just had Wilson in terms of a higher rating overall, because I haven't seen nothing from this defensive coaching staff that tells me that they're going to get creative with guys like that, right? Undersized guys. So that's the thing is like, and again, it's only 1 year, and it might not be fair to them, but just knowing this system and how, the fact that it's not complex, that it's so easy to learn and teach is what makes it so much, popular in the NFL, because guys can just kind of like not think and just kind of react and use their athletic ability. I just don't then see them getting that exotic with using a guy like a, Will McDonald at 239 or a Will Anderson at 250 as an edge rusher. But, if they can do that, hey, man, I love Will McDonald.
What if they end up grabbing a couple of guys in free agency, like your 3 down or 2 down defensive ends, the heavier guys that they usually play with.
Like a Zach Allen, like the kid from Arizona,
and then you bring him in to supplement on your 3rd down plays.
Yeah. And Marcus Davenport is another guy that just can't stay on the football field, but he's another bigger edge guy. Doesn't give you much. I think only had half a sack last year, so we'll see if you can bring him in on a reasonable contract and give those guys up front, and get creative. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that. Just utilize, put these players like McDonald and Azuma who are undersized, put them in a position to where they can succeed and use them at their strengths, and that's just getting after the quarterback for sure.
Mr. Shorty, I understand that you must attend to other business. I want to express my appreciation. Any final thoughts that you have before you leave?
I just wanted to say, this is a very exciting time. They can still trade down from here and get another few picks in this draft. And from what we've seen in polls, I think there might be some more picks to be added to this. And, right now, if you look at it, DJ Moore, he's the highest paid player on the team. He's the best player on the team. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but he's automatically got the spot on the team. So this is exciting moving forward where they're going to go from here. And there's going to be a lot more news coming up that I know we're going to be talking about. And this is fun, guys. I had a great night. It's movie night with my wife and I now. So I want to thank you for having me on. And you guys.
What movie?
Yeah, what movie?
I don't know. She's been picking it out while this has been impromptu, so I haven't even eaten dinner yet. So I'm gonna go munch on some nachos and watch a movie, whatever she picked.
Don't talk about your sex life here, man. Go have a good time with your lovely wife, and we'll see you very soon, brother.
Yeah,
you guys had a great show. Thank you very much. Go Bears.
Hey, guys, go ahead, Danny.
Real quick. No, man, have you watched Zach Harrison from Ohio State yet?
Stiff as a board.
He is, but man, he makes plays, and his size and his length. We talked about a guy maybe in that 3rd round range, could be a base defensive end. Maybe a guy who can. I saw him go up against. I forgot which tackle I was looking at. I think it was the Maryland kid, Jalen Duncan, and he schooled Duncan. And swim move and just using that power, the speed to power ability to kind of walk him back. That's a guy that really, the more I watch him, the more he sticks out to me. Again, guy probably day 3 or day 2, maybe 4th round. I don't know. We'll see how he came out. I know he had huge measurables in terms of length and all that stuff. So, but yeah, doesn't have the bend of a McDonald or an Azuma, but just a guy that the more I watch, man, the more he grows on me.
He's solid
again.
Zach Harrison from Ohio State.
Yeah, he's solid. We did a show. I don't know what that. It was a Bear that souls overtime or something. But we profiled some ends, a bunch of them. If you grab him, Zach Harrison and a DJ Johnson from Oregon, who I wasn't intending on studying, he just popped up because Oregon has so many guys. They had a almost championship level recruiting class they brought in a couple years ago, and some of those guys are starting to mature, and DJ Johnson's one of them, a DN there. And as much as I like Zach Harrison, I'd probably take DJ Johnson before him.
Yeah, I haven't broken him down yet, but I've heard about him. I obviously know who he is, but I haven't broken him down yet. DJ Johnson.
Yeah, check him out, man. He's not bad.
Yeah, we were just talking about edge guys and guys that can be probably good in terms of setting the edge and just might not be a double-digit guys in terms of sacks, but just guys I kept watching him and he just kept schooling Duncan At first, Ohio State versus Maryland. I'm like, man, this guy just keeps growing and growing on me. So again, just a guy to think about, maybe third, fourth round. We'll see how it develops for him. But yeah, definitely, talking about defensive line, right? Just continue to bring some of these talented guys on board here.
Mm-hmm. Twin 129 wanted to know what we thought about what's going on with David Montgomery. I'll throw that one to you, Dan Aguirre. I know, you've shared some thoughts in the past about David Montgomery, but we're all speculating here in terms of what could potentially be happening with his contract situation. What's your gut feel about David Montgomery? Is he going to be a Chicago Bear next season?
I think he's gone. I like him. He runs hard, and I don't know what it is. I'm not an expert at breaking down tape, but it seems like, I don't know if he's running flat-footed early, but I don't know if it's his fault or the offensive line's fault. But it's just a shout out to his toughness. That seems like every time he touches the ball, he's got to get through two guys in the backfield as soon as he even makes his first move. And he's able to do that, but he has a lot of games where I guess the Bears don't utilize his ability to catch the ball, not any wheel routes or anything like that. And furthermore, not enough carries. There'll be a first half where he's got 4 carries or something. He has a lot of games with 39 yards and 53 yards and things like that. I'd like to see him more, closer to 100. And that's even when Khalil Herbert was injured for a 4-game stretch. But then again, if your quarterback's running more than your running back with more attempts, and that's part of it. But as Nomad has pointed out numerous times, he doesn't have the breakaway speed that you would like. And if Josh Jacobs isn't available and Barkley's not available, that probably is good for him in terms of he's one of the top backs available. And maybe because of familiarity, the Bears bring him back, but my gut says no. My gut says he's gone.
Anybody else think that he's gone or could stay? Danny, no?
I think he could stay. I don't think the market's going to be that. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think the market's going to be that robust for Montgomery. I think he's a guy that we know that Poles and the coaching staff likes him. They value his leadership, and I think he's a guy that could come back on a modest 1 or 2 year deal, maybe a 3 year deal. Who knows? But if you're looking to add speed to that backfield, he's not going to give you that speed. He'll just give you a solid, pass protection. He'll give you a solid in between the tackles runner, runs hard, runs tough. But I just, it depends on what they're looking for. If they want to add more speed, I think they're gonna move on. But if they're just looking to keep status quo and bring it back on a modest deal, I think he can come back.
Yeah, people have gotten hostile with me every time I say it. I hate answering the question because I just listen to what they say, guys. You guys think I'm just giving you my stuff I'm pulling out of my rectum. No, I'm listening to what they say. And I've heard them mention multiple times they want to be explosive at every level of the field. And he doesn't answer that bill. I think they want pure explosion out of these running backs. And I think they want to go 2 and 3 deep to be able to do it. And I don't see David Montgomery as being that guy. As much as I love him, I love that dude, man. His toughness. I go in the trenches with him in a minute out of most all the Bears on that team. But I just know, based on what I've heard them say, they are willing to let him walk to get more explosion in the backfield. That's what I believe based on what I've heard.
So I got Jahmyr Gibbs would be, I think, a nice add for the Bears if they can get him again somehow in that second round, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Back to the defensive line, B Minor says, would you give Clowney a prove it deal? Danny said, as soon as I said, he was already nodding no.
I'm not scared of him. I like him. He's not going to be every down defensive end, but when he's right, he's right. You put him on a pitch count, he's really good because he's not playing down in and down out. So, talent-wise, he's a fit. But, some of the stuff that comes along with Jadeveon Clowney, his age, you can have that. But talent-wise, you can't deny it.
No, he doesn't produce for me, Nomad. He doesn't produce, and he talks a lot. And I think he thinks he's better than anybody is, and I think it just started when he was back at in college, where he made that big hit against the Michigan running back, and that's been it really. He had a couple of good seasons with the Texans. It's about it. He hasn't really done anything, and I think he's just a guy that just got a big name but no production. And then I think last year with him talking about Miles Garrett, with Cleveland. I'm good with that. I think I'll pass on him.
Okay, I'll grant you that one. But here's a scenario, and I'm only bringing this up, Danny, because it's something that I noticed about the Cleveland organization. It looks like a tear down there too. And if Miles Garrett became available in a trade, would you consider that?
Yes.
Herpes.
Yes. I used an obscenity because I didn't even want to. Sorry, Danny. I know the question was to you, but if Miles Garrett is available, I would consider giving up that 9th pick in the draft straight up for Miles Garrett.
They might want more, though.
Yeah, but if that was the offer, I would be tempted to make that trade straight up.
Timon, what do you think?
Me?
On you. Yeah.
Oh, 9th pick overall for Miles Garrett is an absolute beast. But again, how old is Miles Garrett, guys? Is he like in his 20s? Is he up there? I don't know.
He is 27 years old and 78 days. So
he's in that. He's in that. And again, another big contract guy. So I don't know, but number 9 might be just. I hate giving up draft picks, and even though you're getting a great player back in Clowney, I'm not Clowney, but Miles Garrett, man, that'd be hard. But he would be your best pass rusher day one, no doubt about it. And
ask Justin about him. His first start.
That's right. Yeah. The contract situation
we should probably tell Matt Nagy not to use Cole Kmet one-on-one versus Miles Garrett.
There you go.
Would you give up a high 2 and a future for him?
Yes.
Okay.
Hell yeah. The contract situation with Garrett is interesting because there is a potential out that the Browns have before it really, it's going to kick into the $20 million per year situation for him. So if he were to be traded to the Chicago Bears, I'm sure the Bears would want to negotiate a deal with him first so that they could accommodate the $50 million Justin Fields is going to make in 2025, because that's really what the quarterback market is starting to look like in the next 2 or 3 years.
How about this one, Aldo?
Terrifying.
Since Cleveland gave up so many picks to get Watson, right? So what if we would say, okay, we'll give you one of our 2 first-round picks next year, one of those first-round picks straight up for Garrett then. And then that's a risk because you don't know, are the Bears going to be good? Are they going to be bad? So Cleveland, it's sort of a risk for Cleveland to know where that pick is going to fall. But hypothetically, maybe you dangle a first-round pick, next year's first-round pick straight up for him then. How about that? And you keep your 9th this year.
I don't think they'll trade Garrett.
I didn't get that one all the way. What'd you say, Dan?
I was saying keep your 9th pick this season, right?
Okay.
But Cleveland's still without a lot of first-round picks because they traded, 3 to get Watson? So offer one of your first-round picks in the 2024 draft, because you have 2 first-rounders now. Offer them one of those 2 straight up for Garrett. But I said it was a little bit of a risk for the Browns because you don't know where the Bears are going to be. Are they going to be good? They're going to be bad? Where's that pick going to be? But still, keep your 9th pick this season and offer them one of the 2 first-rounders next year for Garrett.
And that scenario, I'll be honest with you, because both those picks next year could be in the top 10. I would hate to do that, so
the bird in the hand, though, man.
Here's a question that no one's talking about. Khalil Mack's probably going to get cut by the Chargers. How do you guys feel about bringing back Khalil Mack as a defensive end here?
Khalil Mack's done.
I don't think he's done, but I think Leonard Floyd might be a better fit given the circumstances as far as the financial reasons. I think you can get. I love Khalil Mack, man. I would not be mad if he came back here, but the more realistic one is probably a guy that he's got the traits that Eberflus would like. He's long, he's lean, he's fast. And Leonard Floyd, maybe he can come back and redeem himself. He's a much more mature, much more savvy edge rusher. Now he finishes and gets around the corner better, and he doesn't overrun everything like he used to do when he was here.
He always played well against Green Bay, though.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
But the one thing about
he was the 9th pick in the draft. That's the one we have now. He was the 9th pick when we took him that year. But go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
No, I'm saying the one thing about Floyd that gives me pause, and you're right, no, Matt, he's been, I think he had 9.5. I think he had 10.5 sacks his first year, 9 the last 2 years. and respectively with the Rams. But the one thing is how much of his production is based off of Aaron Donald gobbling up all those blockers in the inside. So I don't know. It's just it's a Brian Pace pick that was bad. I just hate to bring that back here. So I just thought of Mac just because obviously Mac he's not the player he was obviously before, but he's a guy that wasn't made all pro teams as both a defensive end in a 4-3 system and as a 3-4 outside linebacker. So just a fun thought, if you want to go get someone from like a veteran, but again, he's probably looking for a team that's kind of more ready to contend as opposed to coming here too. So just curious. We got to get some sacks on this defensive line. I'm just trying to find ways that we can improve him somehow, some way.
Is it a foregone conclusion that the Chargers are going to cut him though? Is that unequivocal?
They might try to still trade him.
They could trade him. They could keep him. It's just rumors. Like there was the rumor that they're going to trade or cut Keenan Allen and just end up restructuring him and saving some money on the cap. Now next year they might cut Keenan Allen because I think his cap hit for next year is like $30 million or something like that. So
God.
We'll see what happens. But just a thought there.
Well, what's the name is Floyd is on the market. That's a given. He's out there.
Yeah, he's been cut. Yep.
He's been cut, or they're trying to trade him?
No, Leonard Floyd's been cut. He was cut today.
Oh wow, jeez. That's now. Did he ever play a 4-3? Because it was 3-4 his entire career, wasn't it?
Yes, it was 3-4 at the Bears.
Yeah.
With the Rams, they did more of like a hybrid look. I mean, there was times where he had his hand in the ground, but a lot of times I saw him, he was standing up in a 2-point stand. So,
he can bring it, man. He can still bring it. I mean, like Danny said, I looked at his tape today just because I figured people might want to talk about that, just to see the last couple of years in LA, and it's a mix between him standing, edge rushing, and in the dirt, and he was effective each way, and you could just tell how much seasoning he's got on himself now versus to how he was here. He overran the play so many times when he was here. He's just much more sound at the things that he does well than as opposed to when he was here.
Jay Sanders says Floyd had 9 sacks in 2022. Mac had 8. I take Floyd. Mac again got off to a fast start.
3 in the first game, and I told you, rewind the tape. When he had 3 in week 1, I said he still won't get 10.
You're right. I remember that.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. He's a great player, but his body has taken so much abuse that you can't count on him for a 17-game regular season. And if you make it to playoffs, he won't be there. So Khalil Mack.
He's had 3 playoff games without a statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, without a stat, without a tackle, without a sack. One with the Raiders against Houston, the Bears against Philly, and the Bears against New Orleans. Now, he had a decent playoff game against Jacksonville this season with the Chargers. Had a sack, I think, but he's had 3 playoff games in his perceived prime, especially with the Raiders, where he gets just shut down. Could you imagine if, even when Detroit, we always go back to Jordan, but even if Detroit was like, okay, we're going to shut down Jordan, we're going to be rough on Jordan, it's not like Jordan wasn't still getting 25, 30 points, but, they were able to beat him up enough to win, but it's not like they shut him down and he had 6 points. You know what I mean? Like Mac gets shut out of big games consistently, even when he was young. So why would you bring him back old? I mean, I just don't see it, guys. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and he may be a great guy and all that stuff. I'm not taking away from that. But I don't know why you'd bring him back unless he's some team-friendly deal.
I should play that on. I can go to a game with Dan Aguirre and play that soundbite right there while he's walking around with all those 52 jerseys in the stadium. What's
the same thing with Urlacher? He's one of those players that people just immediately think, oh, he's great. But they don't look inside the numbers. Like Urlacher had a great 2001, a great 2005, a great 2006. I mean, he had a lot of okay years. Other than that, there was one point in his career he was named the most overrated player in the fucking league by Sports Illustrated by the other players. People forget these kind of things because they just love him and they love Mac. And I don't understand it. And they just hated Cutler, for example.
So what
There's
if
just some players you like, some people you don't like.
What if he was willing to come in under a $10 million contract?
But would he?
Yeah. if he really wanted to come back here and finish his career.
He doesn't
Well,
want
I
to
mean,
come back here and finish.
Yeah, I don't.
I doubt it. I think he wants to come back to Chicago as much as Dan wants him to come back to Chicago.
I don't dislike him. I'm trying to like.
You're talking about production.
I'm arguing like in the biggest moments, he gets shut down. And the point that you always made that was so sneaky good is that most of his statistics always come against a team's backup when their veteran is injured and the guy's making his first start or what have you. That's when he eats those people up. But when he's against a Pro Bowl lineman, he is shut down. I'm talking when he's 27, he is shut down when he's against someone that's great. It happens all the time, man. It's happened his whole career.
Notorious TBG just asked me something. I'm sorry, Aldo. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. What did he ask you?
He asked me if I would who am I taking between Miles Murphy and B John at 9. I'm damn sure not taking B John. That's Miles Murphy all day. I'm not messing with B John until second, third round. I'm just not, man. I what you guys see in B John after I studied the tape and knowing what I know about running back, he's a lot like David Montgomery in the sense that he depends on that stutter move, and in the NFL, you're not going to be able to get away with a whole lot of that. He jukes too much, and you're not going to be able to get away with a whole lot of that in the NFL. It's pretty much one cut, and you need to get your ass north-south. And he's a lot of east and west and trying to juke people around, trying to duck tackles, and I think that doesn't bode well for the NFL speed. And so that's the only reason why I'm not so high on B. John Robinson and more high on some other guys out there.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap things up here and take a few more questions. Let's see, what do I got here? Where do you guys see us getting a linebacker, free agency or draft? And would you move Sanborn to the will position if you can find a better fit at Mike? Go ahead, Danny Shimon.
Well, I mean, for me, I see all these, Bobby Okereke, rumors and fits here with the Bears, and I know he played with under Eberflus with the Colts, and but he's just a guy for me, and to pay him 12, 14, whatever it's going to cost $1 million to bring him in, I think it's a waste. I would just kind of, I like Sanborn in the middle. I would try and see if there's someone you can get, in the draft, preferably. If not, just I'd bring back the kid Morrow from last year, and with an improved defensive line, I think both Sanborn and Morrow would have an opportunity to make more plays. Obviously, knowing that Morrow is going to be a stopgap guy, maybe 1 year veteran, until you find someone as a permanent replacement. But yeah, I mean, right now for me, I've been saying this for a couple of years now. If your offensive or defensive lines suck, your team sucks. So until the Bears fix both lines, it's hard for me to kind of look at investing a lot of draft capital or money in positions like that. But especially if you have guys that can be sufficient enough in terms of in their current role. So I definitely would try it. I wouldn't pay a lot of money for a free agent. If you can get a guy on a like a 1 year prove it deal, a veteran. Definitely would look into that for sure. But to commit long-term money for a guy like Okereke or anything like that, at big bucks, I wouldn't do that. I would just try and get a veteran stopgap, if not bring back Morrow, and then find a kid in the draft.
No, Matt, you got a thought on that?
Yeah, really quick, and I'll answer this in the way that I've seen Eberflus's history. He's a former linebackers coach, and so his history with being a defensive coordinator is he's drafted his linebackers, whether it be undrafted guys or, I hadn't seen a record of him bringing in a free agent linebacker. However, with his history with Bobby Okereke, is it plausible? I think so. It just depends on how much money he's asking for. But I think he likes to draft his guys. I think he's a really good linebacker evaluator. The guys that he's gotten over in India are outstanding. And so I trust his eye in the draft. As far as a Jack Sanborn goes, I think you want a lot more athletic will. The difference in what a will does in our defense versus another is most of the time the will is lined up over the ball. And that he might come off the ball after the ball is snapped. So you're gonna cover a lot of space. I like Jack Sanborn going downhill, playing a Sam. You leave him at the mic, that's fine. But I like that guy going downhill as opposed to being in space and really, really covering field.
Danny, what do you think about Tremaine Edmonds? I mean, this guy came out of college. Everybody thought he was going to be the second coming, and he had a slow start to his professional career. But he's proven that I think he's 25 because he was so young when he came out. He's 24 or 25. This guy could be a really productive linebacker in this scheme. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, he plays in a 4-3 scheme now with Sean McDermott over in Buffalo. Came out in the same draft with Roquan. I think, that was always the talk between him and Roquan. I always liked Roquan better. Big, rangy, middle linebacker, outside linebacker. Again, you're going to be paying a lot of money for a linebacker. And I just unless I know what's going on up front, unless that up front is taken care of, I just can't put a lot of money into a linebacker right now. So, so I mean, yeah, it'd be a nice, nice combo. But again, you were talking about guys going to be asking about $15 million a year, and I don't know if I want to pay that right now for a linebacker, especially an off the ball linebacker. So, until my defensive line is fixed, I just can't do that. And in terms of Nomad makes a good point in terms of the Bears. The Bears play, I think, was it 70% of the snaps or almost 80% in the nickel defense. So, that two linebackers, they didn't have the traditional middle, weak, and strong side. So a lot of times, that extra DB was in there. So, you need linebackers that can, have the instincts to be able to find the ball, post snap, and be able to, find those gaps and those lanes and run down and make plays. And, I think Sanborn surprised a lot of us last year. So you're really looking for a linebacker that's going to be, playing next to Sanborn most likely. And I just don't see paying that much money right now for a free agent. I just rather, good point with again, Nomad, Eberflus is a linebacker coach. That's what he was a linebacker in college. He, came through the ranks as a linebacker coach. And I think he's that guy that can probably find one in the draft and help develop him. So yeah, I wouldn't pay that much money for a linebacker unless my defensive front is taken care of.
Hey guys, before we get out of here, I want to do a quick little experiment. So I turned on Pro Football Focus in their mock draft simulator. They've already made the adjustment that the Bears are drafting at the number 9 position. So there is one trade offer, and it is from it's from the Bengals, and they hold the 28th pick of the first round. So that's an obvious no. So we're going to draft a player. Just to go through this real quick, let me go this full frame on this. Oh, yeah, there you go. Just to go through who has been picked already, it's Bryce Young going first to the Panthers, C.J. Stroud to the Texans, Will Anderson to the Cardinals, Anthony Richardson to the Colts, Jalen Carter to the Seahawks, Tyree Wilson to the Lions, Will Levis to the Raiders, and Christian Gonzalez to the 8th. So that leaves on the board cornerback Devin Witherspoon, wide receiver Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver from Ohio State, JSN, Peter Skoronski, the tackle, they have him listed, but we know he's going to be playing guard, Kalijah Cansey, the short-armed interior defensive lineman, Brian Branch, the safety from Alabama, Lucas Van Ness, Joey Porter, Dalton Kincaid, Deontay Banks, Paris Johnson Jr., Byron Brisset, Nolan Smith, the speedy edge rusher from Georgia. So any names there pop out at you guys that you would say, all right, let's make this pick, or I don't know, call a psychiatrist.
Let Danny bite that apple first.
Well, for me, it'd be between from this list here. Obviously, Broderick Jones still there too, the kid from Georgia, the tackle from Georgia.
Yes, should be, because I didn't see him selected, so they've got him down here.
Between those two guys, for me, the other guy I'd consider would be Jackson Smith and Jigba, but again, that's a receiver. Could that be too high for a receiver that caliber? I don't know, but yeah, for me it would be either Broderick Jones or Paris Johnson, the tackles from Ohio State. So one of those two guys would be my pick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What do you think, Nomad?
Before I answer this question, let me tell you why I would pick this person. It's because I've literally seen him play at every level of the defense effectively and be a playmaker at slot corner, at off-ball linebacker, as a matter of fact, on-ball linebacker, and he's played safety effectively and made plays in those positions. and that's a wild card. That kind of guy you can't pass up on. To me, he's the most talented guy in the draft, and that's Trenton Simpson.
Interesting. So I could see
Hold
that.
on. Although I'm gonna assume we did a whole bunch of free agency signings and shored up some positions so we can just get the best player available. So that's where I'm coming from.
I'm with that. I'm with you on there. Dan Aguirre, you care to make a selection here?
You know me, I want to go offensive line because I still think Justin is going to be so much better if the line is better. And I think Justin's solid now. Again, he needs to get better passing the ball. I concur. But you shore up that offensive line, I think he's going to be the baller that I keep telling you that I think he is.
Yeah. Well, there is a lot more to contemplate, discuss, debate, and we're going to be doing that over the next several weeks with our vast array of shows. And we're loaded this weekend. Greg Gabriel, who on Twitter about 90 minutes or so before the trade was announced, saying, I'm hearing something really big, and if it happens, it's going to be great. And so he knew about this trade 90 minutes before it was announced by Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. So I'm going to try to get him to name his source. No, I won't do that to the guy, but we're going to talk about his insider information and a lot more, and a special Gabriel Talks Football tomorrow. And then the Barfly Tailgate guys are back Sunday morning. They're going to discuss this trade and a lot more regarding free agency. There's so much to talk about. This is a great time of the year, and I'm so happy we have so many participants on our live chat feed. This show will be available for consumption on demand here on our YouTube channel. Let's go around the horn and get some shout outs or goodbyes. Danny, I'll start with you.
No, I mean, just it was fun. Getting together with Nomad and Dan and you, Aldo, and Shorty as well. So just like I said, this was going to be an off season that was going to have a lot of surprises, a lot of goods and positives and negatives. And so far, this is the first big shoe to drop here was trading that first round pick. Now let's see what happens in free agency. Definitely looking forward to that. Start of next week. So again, just my thing is I'm looking for the Bears to attack that defense and offensive line, and just show up those two lines. And once you show up those two lines, then you can start talking about a team that's being built the right way.
Indeed. Nomad, what you got for me?
I just want to say thanks to you guys on the show, all you guys, and this is Danny and I first time cross producing, putting out content. I think it was great, man. I enjoy working with you. Certainly, it was a good show in my eyes, and our hardcore fans in the chat. Man, I love you guys, and I just peace and love to everybody, man, and look forward to putting out more content moving forward. Hopefully, we get a lot more news coming, and we have a lot more reason to put out content. And so, I'm always excited to do it. So, thank you guys.
I want to invite you on to Draft on Tap, Nomad. We can have a couple of debates going back and forth with some of these players, especially as we get close to the draft here.
Appreciate that, man. I would love to do it.
Yep. All right, I love it too. Debates between Nomad and Danny Shimon on Draft on Tap. Or maybe we'll do the Bear debate with you two guys. Bring that show back. I've been thinking about doing that. Dan Aguirre, last but not least, what do you got for me, man?
Well, as you know, I mean, this sounds stupid to some people. My cat's surgery is Monday, so I'm a little anxious over that, a little worried over that. So I appreciate this opportunity tonight to distract me for 2 hours from that stress, and just to be talking Bears, man. Like I said, I'm not a draft expert. Danny does that tremendously. I'm not blowing smoke. He does that great, and it was fun to be on the show with him, and good to meet him last year. And always good to be with Nomad and Dan and yourself. So it was fun, man. Like I said, I'm not the draft guy, but it's still, to me, to talk just about Fields and the history and any of that stuff. I'm willing to do that all the time, as you know. So to make it concise, I appreciate you having me on.
Well, we love you, Dan Aguirre. Hey, your friend Rebecca is in the chat room. She said it was a good show. So
she's a good lady.
That. Awkward silence.
Sorry, no, she's a good lady. I didn't say.
How big is it?
She's 6 feet tall.
Whoa!
I'll say that for Tuesday. I will mess with that Tuesday.
All right, everybody. I will just say, like I said before, we got more programming coming up this weekend, and of course, a full slate of stuff: baseball, basketball, hockey, and more football throughout the week. So the best way to stay on top of stuff is to subscribe to the Barroom Network here on your YouTube channel, and also to our podcast outlets. You can find us on iTunes, Apple, Spotify, you name it, we're there. I will say goodbye, everybody. And again, thank you for all the donations in the chat room. That really means a lot to us, and we will see you soon. I wish I could find my goddamn closing because I'm stalling. Oh, there it is. Got so many videos loaded up here. Take care, everybody.